Wednesday, December 20th to order. Let me lead us with a word of prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day and opportunity we have to serve the people of Glynn County. Father, thank you for this nice, beautiful community we live in, and just help us be good stewards of the money that we get from the customers, and help us be wise and understanding of the problems we encounter and how we should approach and provide solutions. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. But there's no public comment.
No, sir.
Item 1 is minutes from November 15th, 2023 Facilities Committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second. I'll second. Motion second. All in favor?
All right.
Motion carries 2-0. Change order number 2, AMI meter replacement project. Mr. Roberts.
Right on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep my presentation rather brief today, but I do have some more information that I would like to share at our full commission meeting tomorrow. The request that's before you is for the closeout change order for the meter replacement project. Just to give you a little bit of history there, I've given you some bullet points. We started our pilot project back in December of 2020, during which we installed 250 meters. We funded that particular phase with R&R funds. Moving forward from there, our full installation began in January of 2021. That was with a GFA loan, and you remember we received the fantastic rate of 0.07% for that. During that full installation phase, we also placed 2 new poles for collectors. We had 9 existing infrastructure assets that we used for placement of those antenna. Full system audit was performed between May and October of 2021. You may remember we encountered some rather unique installations within our system that we didn't necessarily anticipate, at least in the quantities that we encountered them. So a change order came before the board at that particular time and was approved for us to move forward. We did then at that point go ahead and order all the complete remaining inventory. We realized it was a little bit of a chance that we took with that, but we did know that there was a 30% price increase coming immediately behind that change order. So we wanted to go ahead and take care of the pricing that was in front of us at that particular time. Even ordering at that point, we were still receiving deliveries in November of 22. So we believed that was a wise decision that we had made to move forward at that particular time. Installations continued from November 21 into November 2023, and just recently we celebrated with a project luncheon on December the 12th. Not only were we all still talking to each other once the project was done, we had built such a great partnership that one of our partners bought lunch for us and had us bring the project team in and have a little bit of a celebration here in the commissioner room. That was actually last Tuesday that occurred, so very nice of them to do that. Also during this time we had on-site training both for the Neptune 360 dashboard that's a part of this project and out in the field with our field staff. So I had quite a busy few years there. So before you today, within the closeout change order, you'll see a deductive value in the total of $1,557,102.12. You may wonder where that money comes from. Well, to give you a little bit more background about the project and about the funding, the first phase of this project was funded with a not to exceed amount based on quantities. We had unit prices that we had assigned and we had moved forward with that. Also a not to exceed allowance. The fixed price included the meter, the installation, the programming for the meter, and the GPS work that was needed in order to physically locate the meter on site. The not to exceed allowance, which was the secondary part of that, was if we needed to replace the curb stop or the backflow, or we needed any specific plumbing work done in addition to setting the box itself, that's where that not to exceed allowance came in. So you'll see a deductive line for that in the amount of $1,038,441.92. The MDMS head-end server software that you see there, that's the overall system software, and it was based on the number of meters installed and the point at which they were installed. We actually initially went back to the pilot phase of the program, and during the pilot phase they ended up not charging us for the software. So it was the pilot phase, And then the very end of the project, because of the fact that we compress our installations, that we didn't end up paying those charges in that amount, and that's $100,469.80. The customer portal annual costs that you see there in 4 different line items, those were for each of the 4 project years. And at that particular point, we had made the decision not to use the customer portal that we had originally spec'd. One of the reasons for that was we had determined that Neptune, who is the meter that we installed, was planning to do their own customer portal. So we rather would wait and do something that we knew immediately interfaced with our software and our existing meters. So that's when we didn't have those customer portal costs. The last line item that you see there for returned meters was 193 total meters that we had at the end of the project, sizes 3-inch, 4-inch, and 6-inch, that we did not need for the project. As I mentioned previously, we had placed that large order, not knowing specific quantities at that point. But one of the things that we did discover was with meters of that size, the 3-inch, 4-inch, and 6-inch in our customer information system are listed twice, because we have what we call sequence 1 and sequence 2, because there's a low flow and a high flow side to those meters. So when we were estimating quantities, unfortunately, we picked up sequence 1 and sequence 2 for those meters, so we had overestimated our quantity somewhat. Our partners at Neptune and Delta did say that they would take returns of those meters from us. There is some work that they have to do on their end in order to deprogram them from our system, and unfortunately, because they sold them to us as new meters, they can no longer sell them as new meters. So there was a bit of a deduct that took place as a result of that, but the net result was still a credit to Joint Water Sewer in the amount of $278,010. And that brings us to our total of the $1,557,102.12.
Let me ask you, what is the not to exceed material supplies and labor? Is that a credit of $1,038,000 for that?
Yes, sir. That's for not only the initial phase, but also that first change order where we didn't use all of the estimated quantities that we had gathered during that audit. You may remember we ran into those yoke bars, and those yoke bars had created some challenges for us, and we had gone back and we had done some estimates as far as what would need to be replaced and what would not need to be replaced.
All right, so we had a change order for
Yes,
that.
sir.
And now it didn't come out to be that much. How much was that change order for?
The change order originally was $3,200,087. Let me try this again.
So it came in
$3,280,000.
about half of what we thought it was going to cost.
It was higher than we thought, yes, sir. So that's how we ended up with the credit at the end of the project.
And also, a lot of the work, some of the more difficult meter installations our water distribution staff took on.
That's correct.
Our distribution staff, they do great work. And they took on some challenging meters that didn't end up getting billed to the project for the labor for installation and all those additional things, because we felt like they could get it done at a better rate than what we were going to be charged. So some of that's involved in that, just meters that they took on as part of the project.
And where the meter was in concrete,
Some of those, yes, sir.
Concrete, or they repair the concrete?
It depends on the particular installation. Some of them were more challenging than others, and as Mr. Burrows mentioned, some of those got turned back over to our water distribution staff. But M&E did do some of those change-outs as well.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Would it be safe to assume that the installations were all done in a very standardized kind of manner
Yes, sir, that's correct.
at this point? So,
The discussion that we had with all of our bidders when we let the RFP process was we wanted to have a standard box set up, and with Mr. Klein's help and his staff, we were able to put together some standards that we said, this is how we want this set up, and that's why where we were able to use the estimated quantities but the fixed price, because we said, okay, these are the elements that we want included in that fixed price.
right, so now if our own crew has to go out and replace a meter at some point, they know pretty much what to expect then.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right. And we made an effort to not only standardize the installation, but also the inventory as well. So they know if they grab a curb stop off the shelf, it's the same kind of curb stop that we already have in our system.
Which is probably the way it should have been done originally, but.
Fair to say.
But that's, at least we've set the standard now, and I think that's important, that
Thank
we
you for
have
that
set the
point.
standard.
Another key thing too, not only is it all standardized, but we got every meter GPS to sub-centimeter accuracy. So over the years, in a lot of situations, water meters get covered up, and whether
Sure.
intentionally or unintentionally from things, they become in flower beds and things like that. Sometimes it takes a while to find them. Well, now we have sub-centimeter accuracy of where every meter in the system is.
And I assume that when some of the meters were put in, GPS wouldn't have been available at that point.
Not readily, definitely.
You know, not like it is now.
We had all of them in there, but it was somewhere in this 20-foot swath, which is not super helpful when you're poking around in the ground.
And I think the other thing is notable in this project is that there were some key points when some decisions were made, and I really applaud the staff for the decisions that were made here, because when we decided to buy the meters because we knew the price was going up and get the better price on it, those are the kind of things that were very strategic, and I think we should be very proud of this entire project. And Ms. Roberts, I know that you were kind of leading the whole thing, and I want to thank you for all your efforts, and maybe a few sleepless nights from time to time too. So.
Very kind words, Commissioner. Thank you for that. And I have a saying that has been prevalent throughout this entire experience, and that's teamwork makes the dream work. I'll share a little bit more on that with you tomorrow, but yes, sir, I certainly was not solo in this effort. So.
And I had an opportunity to sit in one of the trainings, and I could see that it was, there were a lot of very competent people that were working with us to do that. And the staff was responding well to that, and I think certainly speaks to teamwork and the efforts that you've made in that area.
What's the final contract price?
Should be around 16.7.
Sorry, you have stumped me, sir.
It came in.
Yes, sir, I will bring that value. If someone can do quick math for me, the original was $14,105,363.20. Change order was $3,287,712.60.
2 million what now? Sorry.
$3,287,712.60.
Okay.
Deductive change order is $1,557,102.12.
15,835,973.
Thank you, sir.
15,900.
15 now, essentially.
And that's how many meters did we replace?
We were originally estimated to be 15.
15, that's correct.
Yes,
Ballpark is about 30,000 meters got replaced.
Yes, sir. I believe
We've had some new installation. We got over 31,000 meters now, but some of those have been new installs since the project started.
Right, soon.
And this is obviously a long-term project. These meters are expected to last for a substantial amount of time.
Yes, sir.
Did we draw down the GFA funds as we were doing it?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we did. We will not use all of the GFA funds because we did a total of, we did 1 loan and 2 modifications. We were phasing the project initially, so we started out with a $7.5 million loan, then we did another $7.5 million loan, and then with the change order, we added a $3.2 million loan, so that total is $18.2 for the total.
But we're not going to spend it all?
No, sir. I hope that's a good thing, but I understand what you're saying as far as having the money available to us. But yes, sir, we have some meters that we are returning to operational inventory, but those are the smaller meters that we know will easily and quickly be used by the operational crew.
Is the interest rate on a GFA loan, though, the point?
Yes, sir, 0.07.
All of it's at
Yes, sir, at that same rate.
Because
That's correct.
all water meters qualify for conservation.
Conservation, right.
Because it helps with tracking water loss. Improved meters reduce your water loss.
We're not using $3.7 million.
Just won't draw that down is what it is. It's not, we're not technically returning it because we haven't drawn down. We draw down as we submit applications.
Yeah.
And what we do is some utilities will draw down first and then pay their contractor, but we want to maintain good relationships with our contractor, so we pay and then we request the reimbursement. But we've done that steadily.
Todd, when we have a new subdivision come in and meters are put in, and how many meters are going to be coming in this next year, do you think?
We've installed the last 2 years about 1,400 meters the last 2 years.
So we're here pretty quickly.
So, things are maybe slowing down a little bit, not a huge amount. So maybe we won't do 700 next year, but we'll do at least 500 next year, I would suspect.
Can we use some of that funds to buy some meters?
That's what I was explaining. That's really what we've already done because of the fact that we did have those estimated quantities. The larger meters we were returning, but we've kept 10 of each of those sizes. We kept 10 3-inch, 10 4-inch, and 10 6-inch. And in operational inventory, we turned over about 1,400 of the residential size meters, the 3/4, 1, and 1.5-inch meters.
So you still have 1,400?
Yes, sir, between those 3 sizes.
And the developer, he gets the meter from us and installs it? Is
We
that-
install it.
We install the meter, yes, sir.
Okay.
So, I mean, some, depends on the developer and home builder. Some of them will call one at a time, some of them will call for 50 at one time, because they're gonna come in and start doing more of a, group production type thing.
Like on the townhouses, they.
Right,
probably-
townhouses and
they
stuff,
do
they'll
them.
call for 40 to 50 at a
Yeah,
time.
I was gonna say, yeah, because those go quickly.
But Chairman, I appreciate your point. I see the point that you're trying to make is if we have money left over, is there not some way that we can go ahead and spend that money and have it be part of a project or an advance? We've tried to do that, so I hope I addressed that question for you.
Would it benefit us to have some zone meters in our distribution system?
Yes.
Mr. Burrows and I have talked about that as well, and our partners at Neptune Meter understand the goals that we're trying to achieve, and that's something that we're working on. We're also working with them on some ways that we can monitor our flow meters from off-site. They have some devices for those.
Well, so we could actually keep that loan open perhaps to pay for the zone meter.
There's some potential,
Now,
yes,
the
sir.
trouble, you're paying the interest, but that's not much interest.
No, sir, it's not.
Pretty cool.
No, so district meters would be very helpful for doing water loss tracking, not necessarily quantities, but narrowing down the areas where you may need to invest some resources.
You know, once we bought some portable meters, like for
The
CPOMs.
portable ones have done pretty well. The problem is, of course, you want to get data over a few month period to make that work. And so just having them not billed, but have them in the system and we can continuously pull that information would be a tremendous help. At some of, obviously you can't monitor every subdivision, that wouldn't necessarily be proactive, but some of the larger areas in the system.
What's the cost of a residential meter right now?
$229. Well, that was my cost. I'm sorry, Mr. Climate was piping up with a new. You got a new quote.
Install, not
Yeah.
including the tap, just for the operational cost installed, which includes the box, the service, the meter, our labor, the whole nine, the account chart ups, it's like $690.
Great
And
resolution.
What's the warranty on them?
20 years, and there's a declining period of usage.
13 full, 7 prorated, is that correct?
What about the batteries? How long do they last?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information immediately available, but I'll be happy to get that for you.
The batteries are part of the warranty though.
Yeah, but all of them gonna be failing about the same time.
Understood.
Are they easily replaced, the batteries?
It's the whole
Oh, yeah.
register.
You
It's
take the
it's
whole
a warranty.
register off.
You do,
All of the
okay.
electronics come off of
Come
the
off,
brass.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, do we have some of those
Yes, sir.
stocked?
We do.
Definitely, this is one of the, if you ever heard them talk about failure rates, it's the bathtub curve. You put some of them in and they immediately don't work on the front end, and then you get a period where everything's pretty stable and you start failing again in larger quantities.
And that was one of the reasons that we kept the larger meters for as long as we did, just to make sure that we got through the project and had all that we needed as far as those larger meter quantities were anticipated, because we knew that the timeline on those was
Right.
certainly
Yeah.
extended.
I think we ought to maybe get the zone meters funded from this chief alone too.
We can take a look at that.
Look
We
at
have
DMA.
to, we need to lay out where we would want them at and look at the cost associated with that. If we end up having to buy 10 to 20 meters, maybe there's not a huge benefit to do it for the loan, but if we end up buying 100 meters, maybe it's worthwhile.
And we do have some capital projects in place that will determine the number of
Yeah.
district meters that we will need.
We have a
So,
pretty complicated system,
yes, sir.
different operating levels in the maintenance system, and
Understood.
we need to see where the water's running so we know.
I agree.
Because we want to start knowing what our unaccounted for water is.
Yes, sir.
Putting it off till we got the meters in.
Understood.
Ready for the
Okay,
motion?
yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend that the full commission approve change order number 2 as the closeout change order to Delta Municipal Supply Company's contract in the credit amount of $1,557,102.12.
I'll second. Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 2-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you much.
Next item is JWSC Design and Construction Standards, 2024 revisions. Mr. Klein?
All right, Commissioners, thank you. And I sincerely appreciate the warm-up with references to standards, because how fitting for this next agenda item.
Put them in that order for a reason.
Yes. Thank you.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
There we go. So, very happy to present the draft revision to our construction standards to the Facilities Committee for consideration. And I'll avoid a little of the background here and kind of get to the meat of the thing, but I do want to point out a few things. That the original standards we're working off of currently date back to 2012. So revision is well due. Draft revision was created through efforts of the planning construction divisions as well as all operational divisions, as well as an outside engineering consultant. Draft was presented to the Board of Commissioners on April 20th of this year. Commissioner feedback was reviewed, incorporated into the draft. Draft was then provided to a representative group of what we call stakeholders. Developers, builders, contractors, engineers, regulators, those that will be the end users of the draft. Stakeholders were then invited to attend an open forum on December 5th. We got feedback, reviewed it, and incorporated some of that feedback into the draft you have before you. The major differences you'll see, clarifications and changes to standards really are more general in content. There were some that was covered in the workshops. The effort was made to simplify the text and eliminate some contradictions that we had found in the former and the current draft. Most notable difference you'll see is the format of the document itself, specifically the technical specification section. So the reason we set it up in this format here is to more easily boilerplate the standardized joint water and sewer technical specs into projects, whether it's private projects or capital projects. That way we don't have a different flavor of the technical specs between projects. That should actually drive costs down on our capital projects as well for design engineers. Do want to point out, if approved by the Facilities Committee and then subsequently the full board, the draft will then go to the EPD or the state for review and approval. If they give us any feedback, we'll incorporate that, but we do have to have them review our design standards. Any updates we do to that. Secondary is, the reason for that is obtaining delegated review authority. So if they approve our revision of our standards, we already have delegated water review authority. We are seeking on the wastewater side as well. So having that, we will not need to send private development plans that we review off to Atlanta or off to the local office for review. We'll be able to do that in-house, and EPD will have full confidence that we're reviewing it to an approved standard. So that is the next steps there for the standards, and staff recommendation that we do recognize the importance of maintaining effective standards for improvement of the public water and wastewater system, and recommend upon Georgia EPD approval that this document formally become the current revision of the joint water standards to supersede any previous versions or revisions.
So a couple things I'll add. One, this has been about a 5-year lift to get through this. I've had questions of why it's taking 5 years. We are very blessed to have a very qualified operations staff that works here, and they all provided a substantial amount of input on ways we could improve our standards. And how going through that process of improving those, taking that feedback, sending it back to them, reviewing again. It was an iterative process, and then Mr. Klein and his staff did a whole lot of heavy lifting trying to incorporate all of those different, all that feedback. And sometimes when you get feedback from the field crews, the response is, well, we can't just put that into standards, and we had to work through some of that as well. So good job by Mr. Klein heading this project up. But the other thing, we also did spent a lot of time looking at the approved manufacturers list. That's a huge portion of our standards, and that way, to your point about the meters before, there's a list of approved manufacturers for different products in the system, so that when they review these things and it gets put into projects, we know we're going to get either valve A or valve B, so we can actually better handle our inventory for field operations when you don't have to keep 18 different types of valves on the shelf because we're only going to use 2, for example. And so that's a tremendous help for field operations to know when they get out there on this new stuff that's put in the ground exactly what has been put in the ground.
when
It's a real page turner if you want to go through it.
it is a budget. In this, yeah. So the full document, including the current format of the technical specifications, yeah, 650 pages. So it's pretty lengthy. But just pointing out here, table of contents, pretty easy to understand.
Do you have copies of those ready now?
I believe Ms. Janice made.
I will say there are at least
QR
4
codes.
people that I believe have read the entire thing. And so, I know me and Mr. Klein have been through the whole thing multiple times.
Yeah.
Do you have a section on concrete?
Yes, on our tech specs, yes.
So this wasn't a copy and paste, this was a complete rewrite.
I won't say there wasn't some plagiarization from some
Well, yeah,
some,
I mean, sure,
regional utilities that we
Yeah.
admire,
right.
but it was a lot of reformulation, hopefully simplification of the text, try to get the wordiness out of it. One other thing too is the format of it is everything is referenced by numbers pretty much.
Mhm.
And the reason why, I point that out, code sections, if you will, or numbers, is in the review of projects with Glynn County, one of the things they want is they want specific references to standards.
Right.
So, which we can understand that. And so this will definitely help our staff make the specific references to whichever standards are applicable or
Right.
that they're commenting on.
Right.
Should help definitely in that case. So we're kind of
Almost
honoring.
like a legal document is done that way, sure.
Correct.
Exactly.
Well, and
Standards and specifications.
I will say, Mr. Klein talked about trying to eliminate conflicts. When we read through some of the old things, we would read through and think we had everything together and then figure out something else on another section completely contradicted what was going on. So I sent a lot of emails of, does this make sense? Just because I read something or Mr. Klein would read something, send an email like, hey guys, I think we got a conflict here. So I'm not saying we eliminated all of them, but we eliminated all of them that we could find.
Yeah, it took a lot of eyes looking at it. One other thing I'll point out is what's proposed by staff is the design standards, the section 1. That's pretty much the how we want things done, how we want things designed. The intent is for that to be a board approved and board approved revision, or if there's revisions on the board approved. So that's a board. If something needs to be changed, updated, revised, and we'll probably do this year to year. Any updates, bring it to the board beginning of the fiscal year and say this is what's proposed by staff. That'll be a board action. The more nuts and bolts of things, like the typical details, if we see something that, we need to annotate this on a detail or add this or whatever, more of a staff level approval so we don't burden the board with that. That'll be an executive director approval, the way that we're presenting it. Same thing with manufacturers of products in the technical specifications. So the most important part, section 1, design standards, definitely be a board only approvable for revisions. So that's point out.
So then if the developer comes with a proposal for something, then they'll be using these standards. And so this is gonna be on the website, available to
Absolutely.
them? Okay. So it's very clear to them what our standards are and what the expectations are. So when we go to inspect something that someone's doing, there's gonna be no surprises. If it's not up to our standards, then it has to be changed.
Definitely the intent, yes, sir.
What was the number of man hours spent on this and what was the cost?
Total cost. And my sunk cost, I don't know what my salary, it was, to your point, I'm sure we could come up with a number for that. It may be a little tough, but I'm sure we could. But to that point, one of the intents of this is with all the time spent and cost spent in getting the operational feedback, the intent is now that operations can now look to us at planning construction, trust us with the specs that they were a very large part of creating. They may be able to wean themselves a little bit out of the private development review process. Trust us that we got you covered. We know what you wanted, what you asked for. We got it in the standards, and then they can lean on us to make sure that happens. So some of that may be a cost savings going forward, hopefully.
We got at least 100 hours in the pump station and force main section.
At least, at least. So, but I think it's an investment well spent. That's my opinion.
Is there anything in here that's something that would protect us if another engineer uses our detail and they have an issue or something happens there? Charlie needs to.
Maybe a question for our legal counsel, to see
We
if there's
could
any.
propose that to him. I mean,
In particular, when we got the details.
Right.
We don't want to be dragged into something because.
That's, yeah, correct, yeah.
and we, to be honest, we have seen people that have copied some of our details and put them on projects that weren't in Glynn County before. So.
Mimicry is,
And the reverse has happened. We've got details from other utilities that got in, that slipped in, and that we had to say, no, that's not the detail we use. So. Not intentional. It's just, over the years, people get comfortable using one detail. So.
Copy and paste, I'll tell you.
but that is a good point, though. We can definitely look at that and see what legal, I guess, clarifications we need to put, indemnifications we need to put.
I think you could just do a paragraph or something.
Something like
Saying
that.
something.
Probably, yeah, that's a disclaimer.
Put a footnote on all the details, only for use for joint water sewer related projects or something like that.
Well, I appreciate you getting this done. Do we have a motion?
Thank
Yeah, we have a motion here. All right, I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission, upon Georgia EPD approval, approve this document as the JWSC standards for water and wastewater management design and construction to supersede all previous standards versions.
I second it. All in favor? Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item is dedication of infrastructure. Mr. Klein.
Still up.
All right, thank you again. This item is a dedication of privately constructed infrastructure as part of the development known as Walker Point subdivision, Phase 2. All right. This does result if, well, actually the construction, whether the board chooses to accept it or not, does result in 132 new connections. That's new customers. Walker Point is north of State Route 99 on the Golden Hours Parkway extension.
It's on the old golf course, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, I
It's
think this is the old golf course, right?
right. It's the property on the northwest corner of the old Coastal Pines golf course.
Are these the townhouses?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, as part of this development, it did include about 3,000 linear feet of 8-inch water main and appurtenances, including fire hydrants, and 2,500 linear feet of 8-inch gravity sewer mains and manholes. And that is the infrastructure that they wish to dedicate to us. Now, this will all be in public right-of-ways, so no easements are involved with this dedication. There are future phases to this development planned as well.
Just,
I think total build out's like 430 something
That
lots.
sounds right, a little less than 500.
Is the build out where the yellow is on that map?
The
Is that where the buildings are now?
Phase 2, yes, sir. Phase 2 is pretty much where the highlighted segments are.
So I have a question that's related to this. The pipes that they put in, I assume there's several different manufacturers of these kind of pipes. So is there an approved list of manufacturers? I mean, when I go to Home Depot or something and buy a piece of pipe, I don't pay attention to who
Right.
manufactures it, but I'm assuming we do.
Correct. There, in this area, regionally, most of the pipe suppliers, there's a handful of manufacturers. The nearest one, Eagle, is over in Adel. Pretty cool plant tour if you want to go check that out. It's pretty, you see the big macaroni noodle squirted out.
Right.
But there are several that we do accept as approved manufacturers. And certainly each one of those manufacturers has to meet, for water pipe, water AWWS standards, certain ASTM standards, that type of thing, industry standards. If there's a new manufacturer that's brought to us, we'll certainly evaluate that, and do a full review if it's worthy of putting in our, comparable. But, yes, we do have multiple manufacturers.
And developers are aware of those standards, so they buy accordingly.
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that. And what, the lifespan of a pipe like that is considered
50 years, I think, is what
That's what
the
they
pipe
claim.
reps will tell you,
I
but
think
I'm sure
50
it's
years.
more.
longer than they've been in existence, right?
Yes.
Well,
That's
PVC's been in the
predicted.
ground about 50 years now. I mean,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
PVC started going in early 70s, Chairman? So we're,
But it's getting
we're
up
at,
there.
we're at 50 years on PVC
Okay,
now.
and it's still holding up.
In a lot of situations, yes, sir.
And all of this is gravity sewer.
Gravity sewer, correct.
They got an on-site pump station?
Not here, it all drains out to,
That's right, that's in 19.
it's all fairly deep on the parkway extension.
So the value of this is just under $400,000?
For this
Or-
phase, yes, sir.
This
Right.
phase, yeah.
Is that using today's cost?
That's the engineer, based on the contractor's numbers coming from the applicant. We look at it to make sure it's not a crazy number and it mimics what we see, but we're a little at the mercy of.
With that in mind, one thing, when we run pipe in certain areas, we have to include the cost of paving and all of that
Yeah.
in this. They're just, since they're having to pay for the development anyway, they're just giving you the cost to install the pipe.
This is just pipe, yeah.
So, I mean, we look at some of our projects and paving and, you know, site work and reroutes of things because things are in locations that are not convenient for us. We end up spending 50% of the project cost on those type things instead of just on pipe.
But they're starting from scratch, so.
They're starting from scratch,
Yeah,
so
so they're just paying for that.
Theirs is
Okay.
going to be a lower unit cost than ours.
Yeah, I would like to get their pricing. I wish we could use this as, an order form, yeah, but, that's pretty good pricing.
Ready? Okay. I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve and accept this project, the associated dedication of infrastructure.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Discussion section. Water production report.
Yes, sir. So, fairly standard month. We do, of course, see a little less water usage in the fall and winter months because there's substantially less outdoor water usage associated with that. But on the mainland system, 5.27 MGD going out. Still working on getting that Fletsy well up. We've pinpointed a date that we need to be going back to. The problem is we can't find anything that changed around that date that's obvious as to what caused it to change. We suspected that it would be something associated with one of our projects or a major private development project, but we can't find anything that coincides with that date. So, still doing a deep dive on that, and that's becoming a puzzle that is quite frustrating.
So you think this is not the right number?
No, that number's correct. That's how much water is coming out. Previously, we were producing 10 to 15 million gallons of water with that well per month at Fletsy. Sometime in December of 19, which was before Ridgewood came online, that number dropped and stayed low. And we are still trying to track down. There must be some valve situation that got shut off or something around that time that we've been unable to locate because Fletsy itself uses more than 2.4 million gallons of water a month.
So they must, yeah.
Ongoing quandary. A good puzzle, never caused anybody any
We
concern.
could use a water model and figure that out. Yeah.
It would help, yes, sir. We expected, once we tied in the Glencoe loop down Canal, that the Fletsy wells use would actually increase, and it decreased. So,
Whoops.
again, still trying to figure it out. And one of those bang your head against the wall, eventually you'll get there. We did have 2 complaints, both of which followed up dirty water complaints, likely due to contractor bore through and the pipes getting jarred and flushed and things like that. We had some dirty water issues as a result of that. I will say our distribution crews have been running very hard for the
Busy,
past
yeah.
6 to 9 months with a lot of direct hits on water lines, and so
Just this week alone.
this week alone we've had, I believe, 4 already this week. So we're working with our our partner on the fiber optics to potentially, we've requested that they cease installation tomorrow so that our guys can enjoy their Christmas holiday.
Fiber optics put in there, Casey.
It's a conduit.
It's a conduit, yes, sir.
They go thread the fiber later, pull it.
So they just put in is conduit orange.
Yes, sir. So, with that being said, though, our water usage on the mainland, if you look at the graph on the next page, is as expected. We've seen some consistent growth, particularly in that North Mainland district. It's all one system on the mainland, and you see higher water usage this year over last year, and that's, I would highly suspect, mostly contributed to because of just new customer growth in the area. Like, Mr. Klein just mentioned 130 new customers in one subdivision that have come online. So,
And we can anticipate some significant increase when Buc-ee's opens, right?
Based off my back of the envelope math on 83 toilets flushing at least 6 times per hour, yes, sir, that's going to be an increase in water usage.
Yeah. But we can handle that.
We can handle that, yes, sir. They have broke ground, if you haven't been out
Yes,
there.
I noticed.
They are clearing trees at Buc-ee's now.
We're working on Saturday, too.
Yes. Quite the operation we've got out there. On St. Simon's for the month, again, we are in the low part of the year, less tourists on the island for the month of November, less outdoor water usage. So 2.6 million, or just shy of 2.7 million gallons for the month. System operating very well over there, though, for the month. Gives it a little bit of a break after some stress during the summer when we have all of our out-of-town friends in town. So, but tracking pretty closely with where we've been in the previous year. That is one thing to point out. When people think with new development that water usage becomes a problem, but almost all new development, or all your new development, goes in with low flow toilets and low flow shower heads and things like that. So the impact of a house built today is substantially less than a house that was built, say, 30 years ago. And then at the South Mainland, just shy of 300,000 gallons for the month down there. Very consistent. Are seeing a little bit of growth in that area. And then we're working through some programming challenges on those 2 wells to take a little bit of pressure off the Brookman well and bring it up to Fancy Bluff. Getting the new tank installed at exit 29 will also help that out. Right now, the system at Fancy Bluff has to pump to the complete opposite end of the system to fill the tank up. And so Brookman has been running a little bit more because it just fills the tank up quicker because it's immediately below the elevated storage tank. But very consistent usage on the south end. We are seeing some growth down there, particularly commercial growth in that area right now. So should see some increase in that water usage down there in the coming months. Any questions on the water report? On the wastewater report, one thing I want to point out at Academy, if you look at the Pi Nova flow, they did not discharge to us the entire month of November. And so speaking with the leadership at Pi Nova, they do not intend to discharge any more of their processed water to us. They do have a couple of smaller domestic accounts for offices and things like that. But as far as the dedicated force main into Academy Creek, that one will no longer be used as they finish the closeout procedures of that facility.
That line is owned by Pinova.
Pi Nova owns it until it gets onto the plant property.
It comes into that mixing chain.
Comes into the splitter box in the bottom of the splitter box, yes, sir.
So modify the split box.
No, sir, there are no modifications that need to be done. It's just that line won't be used. Essentially, we fill it up with water, yes, sir. Valve it off because until somebody else wants to build on the Pi Nova property, there's nobody else is tied onto that line because we don't own the line. So we can't allow people to tie on.
Talk to them about buying that line.
We could.
They might want to just get rid of it.
They might want to, yes, sir.
Because it's a liability to somebody.
We could have that conversation, yes, sir. But on the influence side, Less flow coming in for the month of November. Picked up last week, but less flow coming in for the month. So you see the increase in concentrations as we had less rainfall for the month than we had in previous months. Unsuccessful month with violations for ammonia and enterococci for the month. We have taken down aeration basin number 2 at Academy Creek and are trying to remove grit from that. We've gotten 2 containers of grit out of that last week, and that process is ongoing.
Size of the containers.
They're 20-yard containers. Now, they weren't completely full. What we're doing is we're taking a hydraulic pump and pumping it into a dewatering box. So once the water comes out of it, it's not completely full. So we haven't got 40 yards out. We probably got closer to 20 yards out, honestly, with those 2 containers. But that is going to be an ongoing process to get all that material out of there. But our staff has come up with a good game plan on that and started working very effectively, much quicker than we thought to get that grit out of there. When you start a new process, you always assume you're going to have a few days that it's just not going to work, but we started pulling grit in a hurry out of that thing. So.
How do they get it out?
We put a hydraulic pump down in there, and we have reuse water spraying to keep the grit moving, and we pump it out into those dewatering boxes. So we have removed all 4 of the aerators on top of the basin so that we can actually access. We're in the last stage right now, trying to get the last stage clean, with the theory of if we get the last stage clean, any water that's sitting in there will then continue to flow that direction to try to get some of it out of the other chambers, but we're going to have to move to the other 4 chambers.
So how long will it be before how long is it taking to do that?
We got 2 containers full in one day, but that was, of course, dedicating our maintenance staff for a full day to do it.
So we're doing it a lot cheaper than if we contracted.
Right now, yes, sir, and we're actually looking at talking to Mr. Riles. We're actually looking at hiring some temporary labor to spray the water at the top instead of tying up one of our maintenance staff to sit there and do that. It is fairly enjoyable to sit up there with a water hose and spray down and cleave off sections of grit. You know, it's a great enjoyment when you see the wall collapse of the grit. Sometimes you need mindless entertainment. So I spent a good 2 hours down there spraying water at it last week. But hopefully that will correct the issue we're having with ammonia, because a lot of the active space is being taken up by grit. Had some enterococci issues as well. Those numbers seem to be back in line this month. But 98% removal of BOD, 99% removal of TSS. Very dry month for the month of November. I think the only time we had rain was actually the week of Thanksgiving, which is unfortunate that it rained for Thanksgiving. But I think that was the only rain we got in the month of November. About 20 tons. Sarah is back up and running at Academy Creek, so 20 tons to the landfill, and I am happy to say it has not been used yet, but the rework has been done to the sludge offloading facility. The box has been lowered and the slab has been poured, so we've got to start bringing sludge from Dunbar and Southport over there, but that rework has been done. And talking with the contractor, surprisingly, the rework, they cut the legs off of the box about 14 inches and set it back down, and it lined up perfectly the first time, which, 1 in a million chance they didn't have to pick that thing up and shift it around. Got the crane in there, you picked it up with the lull, not the crane. Picked it up with the lull, set it back down, all the bolt holes lined up, they just bolted the thing back together. So, they had to do some welding on it as well, but that went much smoother than they or I was anticipating. But you see our flow, we have made some improvement on the I&I situation, because as you can tell, last year we had some fluctuations month to month that we're not seeing as high of fluctuations, which is a good thing in our system. Dunbar Creek for the month of November, 2.8 million gallons a day going out, which is a pretty good reduction from what we had been at with the less rainfall and less people on the island for the month. Corresponding increase in the influent concentrations, but the plant handled the increase in concentrations very well. 98% BOD, 97% TSS removal for the month. Did get quite a bit more sludge for the month. They've been having some issues with some the decanting and things. Got some of that taken care of, and we were able to process more solids for the month through that. Obviously, it was in the paper earlier this week. We did have a substantial sanitary sewer overflow at Dunbar Creek on Monday. And we're working, we still have I&I issues that we're trying to address. We did have a we had a drive a variable frequency drive fail that operates one of the pumps at the plant. And so the pump did not turn on, and at the influx of water came in, and we got behind. And we are working diligently to prevent that from happening again. The drive has been replaced, and we are looking at some additional preventive measures, and then we are actively looking for new sources of I&I that may be getting into the system, likely in the actual gravity basin that feeds Dunbar Creek and not in the upstream pump stations.
Was there a SCADA warning on that?
That portion of has not been tied into SCADA yet, and so that's one of the things we're also doing. We need to change the programming schematic on that, so we've got some temporary measures in place with some additional backup floats and things that would just turn it on old school style now instead of working off of the drives. We worked diligently Monday to get all that installed, and then yes, you'll probably be seeing a request to buy some new drives and SCADA equipment for the influent in the very near future.
Good investment.
Did speak, we do have one of the aeration basins offline. We took the other aeration basin offline to replace the diffusers. Spoke with the contractor right before this meeting, and he originally was hoping to have that basin online by the end of January, and I pleaded with him to shorten that time frame in any way possible. And he has dedicated that he will bring resources from other areas to get that done as fast as they can. So, not a good week by any stretch of the imagination, but we are working diligently to correct any issues that we have over there.
When are we gonna start up the filters in the UV?
Unknown at the time. We're supposed to start them up last week. We had an issue with some of the actuated valves. What appears to have happened, they were welding in the tank and were not properly grounded and backfed current through those actuated valves and fried them. Thankfully, no one was injured in that process because there was active current going back through those lines at that time. But we are waiting on, we've gotten 6 valves delivered is my understanding. We're waiting on 9 more valves to be delivered and those valves to be replaced before we can start it up. The UV system, my understanding, is prepared to be started up, but we cannot run water through the UV system without running through the new filters, and we cannot start up the new filters right now until those valves are replaced.
How many filters we have? 3. If one goes down, though, you can still go through.
Right. Yes. Yes.
We'll normally be using 3.
I think it certainly is for the first year when we're under warranty, we're going to use all 3 of them to make sure we get all the goodie out of that warranty we can get. But under typical conditions, we won't need more than 2.
We have 2 UV cells. How many UV cells we have?
We have 3 banks of UV as well. It's a little different. They don't have separate channels. It's one channel with just banks of bolts behind one another. So we have 3 banks. But that system appears to be ready to start up. The Trojan is the manufacturer. Their rep was here and went through the checks. He's ready to start up, and we can put water to the filters. Again, talk to the contractor. He is equally frustrated with the delays and is committed to getting them rectified as soon as possible. Southport for the month, pretty good reduction in flow. I think that might be because of some removal of some grit in the effluent chamber that may have been elevating the flow reading. But just shy of 400,000 gallons a day at Southport. Everything operating very smoothly down there. Do see with the reduction in inflow coming in, we do have a much higher BOD and TSS reading coming in. But that's okay. The plant is able to handle that without any problem. Plant's ticking along pretty well down there.
Pictures.
Yes, sir. All right, Commissioners. Thank you. It's time again for our monthly capital project report. This is the projects we have in motion or in construction out in the field. Move quickly through here, but hopefully show you some good progress. This ARCO is our first one, project 2016. And our contractor recruited one of our employees away from us. Mr. Robert Lindsay now works for them, but he's on the project. In that first picture, working with a locator to find some gas lines out there. It's
Looking at that
constant.
picture, I thought the locator was Mikey.
It does look like Mikey.
Wondering
Yeah,
about that, yeah.
it does look like Mikey. But anyway, another segment of paving is done out there under county review. We're in discussions with them to accept that improvement, and 2 water connections as well. So a little bit of progress there. Hopefully going to move on with some gravity sewer install coming in the first month of the new year. Right, galvanized replacements is an ongoing system-wide project with our in-house forces. Additional good pictures there of some of the old assets coming out of the ground.
We have, of course, we've used a lot of the on-call directional drilling contract we have to do some of these galvanized replacements. We put them on hold the last couple of weeks so that people's neighborhoods wouldn't be tore up over the holiday period. So we got a couple of neighborhoods we're working in trying to finish up, but rather than having crews in there, having disturbance in the neighborhood over the holiday season, we put that on hold until after the first of the year.
Got Stephen Phones, Chris Miller, and Andrew Kelly showcased this month. Next project, North Main and Water Loops. Valancourt Construction is our contractor. Seems that we're a little ahead of schedule in our project so far. Looking good on project progress. Crew is down there on Bailey Road, finished up, pretty much paved on that. That one's complete except for just making sure the final grassing and soil stabilization is complete out there. But striping, everything's done. If you drive out that way, you'll see that. Brand new road. And Hatala is where their main focus is right now. It's Hatala and Cape Road and Old Jessup intersection. And that final connection hopefully will be completed this week to get that loop in. Also, I think we got some good pictures here on the next page. That long howitzer-looking piece of material there is a piece of HDPE pipe that's going across the Golden Isles Parkway, or the spur we call it, right there at Perry Lane Road. And that connection is one of the key, well, they're all key connections, but this is one in particular. Having this connection made will totally create some redundancy in our system as far as when outages happen. Right now, if this goes down on this side, it affects all the way back over there, all the way to the west.
All the way to Altala.
All the way, yeah, all the way to Hatala. So that's a 24-inch casing going in. The carrier pipe will go in through that. I believe it's a 10-inch carrier pipe that's going in. So pretty neat operation. Directional drill for the casing has gone fairly smoothly out there. A lot of traffic control, as you imagine. Very busy intersection. TB Landmark, I'll say, is the subcontractor that's doing the drilling on that project. On Station 4044, formerly known as Payless, we're still waiting on submittals to come from the contractor, and then also waiting for Atlanta Gas Light to move the, you see the yellow line in there, move their gas line out of the way. That's already been paid for by the contractor as part of the project, and just waiting for their crews to mobilize to get that gas line relocated. We got some equipment mobilized on site. That's extending the progress so far. Dunbar Creek, got some really good pictures for Dunbar. Some of previous discussion today, maybe to help some of that, the filter bank or the UV banks and whatnot in there. Really good shot down there at the bottom of page 6, showing the sediment and the bobcat in there scraping it out. And that's all gone now. It's actually been swept. We got some good pictures of the contractor staff out there actually sweeping the dust out of the thing. So it's a very clean basin now. And I believe it was has a little water in it right now.
A little bit of water right now got to be drained back out. But I think we got at least 14 container loads of dirt out of that.
There must have been a lot in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was all pulled out. They had a hopper they would lower down in there by the boom.
They were bringing it out 4 yards at a time.
4 yards at a time.
Where are they taking?
Dumping it on the drying beds. And then we're taking it to the landfill.
The above aeration basin number 1 on that picture,
Mhm.
that house back there,
Mhm.
is that the one that we're talking about?
Mm-mm. No, sir. If you come into the current main entrance to Dunbar, there's a manhole at that intersection of Holly Street, and that's where the bulk of the water came from.
Another good shot, if you look at the background there, the new bubble display.
And they have began on the next page excavating slightly for the clarifier installation.
Yep, there we go. You're right through
It's
the
going to be
middle.
much deeper than that, but they're pushing some dirt around out there right now. So
And that's a good shot of the whole plant site there at the very bottom of page 7. Again, you see the diffuser bubble patterns in there. Looks really good.
Road, what are they gonna do on that road as it relates to the pond on the left?
they're going to have to bring in some rock, stabilize the edge of the road, and then they're going to rock the roadway. At this point, they're not going to pave it until after the clarifier is installed, because we don't want to put fresh pavement down and then bring all that heavy equipment in and crack up the fresh pavement. So they're going to stabilize the sides and then rock the back entrance, because right now, after all the construction traffic, is getting beat up pretty good out there. So
Sludge hauling trucks, are they gonna be able to come out that way?
yes, they come in that way now.
Clarifiers,
They come in between the clarifiers and the blower building. And the blower building.
Okay, another project we're working to wrap up, hopefully by the end of the year. It's possible. We've got Tank Pro, our contractor, is working on Glynn Place Mall and Oglethorpe Mall, or excuse me, Oglethorpe elevated storage tanks. Primary focus is Oglethorpe right now, due to that system, the island only having really operating off the one tank on the north end up there. So the focus is getting Oglethorpe completed. Final punch list items are, I understand it out there working now, and final programming with SCADA, that type of thing, washouts, disinfections, and get those tanks back online. So we're hoping that's going to possibly be completed this week.
we don't have communication on that tank, do we?
Not right now. Well, yes, sir. Long term we do. It's been moved to a portable.
Yeah, they'll be back. All right, that's all the pictures we have this month. And of course, there's the detail there on all the projects, many more listed and in motion in some form other than what we show in the pictures. More detail to the right. Also, scheduling as best we can predict, Gantt chart, and EVA at the end.
What's the status of our generators?
We have received, I believe, 5 generators thus far of the 13 we have ordered, including 2 of the portables, maybe 6 generators now. So those have been coming in, working with the electrical engineer about getting a bid package together for installation of those. The big generator for Academy is not scheduled to be delivered until June, and typically that schedule changes the closer you get to the delivery date. So it's unlikely we're going to have all the generators here before we put that out for bid, just because of the delays and different sizes of the generators. So
The prices we pay for them, though, old time prices.
yes, right. They're holding the prices on them. It's just the 18 to 24 month lead time on the largest generators.
So getting them portable pumps.
Not pumps, no, sir. We have a few portable bypass pumps, and we also rent them regularly, yes, sir. The transfer switch project, we have 9 of the 10 installed right now. Our contractor, Y Delta, got in here in November, got 9 of the 10 installed. Still got to do startup and testing on those. One of them is going to require a little more of an effort, just because of the location and the difficulties involved. It's the one at the Sonic station. But the other ones have been installed, conduit has been ran, they gotta pull the conductors and terminate everything and do startup. And that should happen right after the first of the year. So we did not see movement on that portion of the project for quite some time, but now we are seeing some good movement from White Delta on that project.
What are SPLOST projects?
SPLOST is the exit 29 well and elevated storage tank, and then neighborhood extension projects. We're trying to get a firmer grasp on exactly how much the well and elevated storage tank is going to cost us before we put out the neighborhood extension project, so that we can be upfront with our partner, the consultant that we end up choosing, about how big of a project is going to be able to be. Obviously, we know the project's going to come in over the $6 million originally budgeted, but there's a big difference between $8 million and $12 million on what the available work on the other side is. And have they gotten survey done on that lower parcel?
They're supposed to be out there today. Yeah. Thomas Hunt reported their surveyor is going to be here today to do that. Still be some geotech,
Yeah.
that type of thing, taking place next month.
But in the next couple months, we're gonna have the Highway 17 North pump station out for bid, the 4002 CIPP out for bid, and hopefully the RAS and UV at Academy out for bid. We have got EPD approval on that. We're finalizing the bid docs. There's no point in putting it out before the holidays, because those days no one's gonna pay attention to it. So probably have those due likely early February.
We got 2 TV crews.
2 TV crews. And they are not only doing inspections on our system, they also do pre-acceptance inspections for new development. Yes, sir. They run the camera and do manhole inspections.
When was the last time the sewer was rented?
I'll have to check on that. I'm not 100% sure. No, the main line was done, the big line coming down was done more recently, because we did the lining project through there. But I don't know when the smaller lines on the side, when the last ones they had been completed on.
Post after they lined it.
Yes. Found the brick.
Yes, the infamous brick. Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, that's it.
Can you do that, Alan? Much more
We'll just take a
later?
chance.
No, sir, I think that's all I have.